Ukraine ready to accept 30-day ceasefire with Russia. And a fresh round of Gaza ceasefire talks begins in Qatar. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Badani. I am Brendan Lepal. Ukraine has endorsed an American proposal for a 30-day ceasefire and agreed to immediate negotiations with Russia in crunch talks in Jeddah after 3 years of grinding war. With US President Donald Trump stunning allies by applying intense pressure on Kyiv and reaching out to Moscow, Ukrainian officials came to talks in Saudi Arabia, eager to make up and had proposed a partial truce on air and sea attacks. Trump's advisors pressed for more and said Ukraine agreed to their proposal for a full month-long ceasefire in a war that has claimed tens of thousands of lives.
Now, hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes to peace. The ball is now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
Rubio also said the United States would immediately resume military assistance and intelligence sharing it had cut off to pressure Ukraine following a disastrous meeting between Trump and President Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky quickly thanked Trump over the positive ceasefire proposal made in Jeddah and said the United States must now work to persuade Russia. Secretary-General Mark Rutte praised Trump for facilitating the breakthrough in diplomatic efforts to resolve the ongoing war in Ukraine. Rutte said Trump successfully resolved the impasse regarding the situation in Ukraine, with Ukrainian President Zelensky expressing a strong commitment to achieving peace.
I would be optimistic, but of course we have to see. I know that first of all, President Trump, I think, has broken a deadlock, as I said, on the situation now in Ukraine, and I think that is important, and that leadership we needed, and we need going forward.
Under Trump, Kyiv's one-time staunchest ally has upended its policy on the war and piled pressure on Ukraine, declining to provide security guarantees as part of any peace deal. A fresh round of Gaza ceasefire talks has begun in the Qatari capital Doha, with Palestinian group Hamas approaching the negotiations positively and responsibly. Senior Hamas official Abdul Rahman Shadid said Hamas is dealing with the talks positively and responsibly. He hopes that the current round of negotiation leads to tangible progress towards beginning the second phase of truce. He also expressed hope that US West Asia envoy Steve Witkoff would help initiate negotiations for the second phase of the ceasefire agreement. Shadid noted that the US administration bears responsibility due to its unwavering support for the occupying Israeli regime. The first phase of the truce deal expired in early March without agreement on subsequent stages meant to secure a lasting end to the war. There are differing views on how to proceed, with Hamas seeking immediate negotiations for the next phase, while Israel wants to extend the first phase. Hamas has accused Israel of reneging on the ceasefire deal, stating that Israel refuses to commence the second phase, exposing its intentions of evasion and stalling. Syrian military police have tightened security in Latakia, inspecting vehicles at checkpoints and securing key entry points as part of efforts to restore stability in the Syrian coastal governorate. The Kurdish-led and US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, which controls much of Syria's oil-rich northeast, signed a deal with the Damascus government on Monday to join Syria's new state institutions, which some residents hope will ease tensions. The violence began to spiral last Thursday when the Syrian authorities said their forces in the coastal region came under attack from fighters aligned with the ousted Bashar al-Assad regime. The killings have shaken the core Syria's coastal towns and cities of Latakia, Banyas and Jableh. forcing thousands of Alawites to flee the mountainous villages or cross the border into Lebanon. Syria has suffered its worst bloodshed since Assad was toppled from power, with more than 1,000 people reported killed in violence that has swept the coastal region.
Several people were killed and around 100 hostages freed by Pakistani troops after an armed group attacked a train carrying over 450 passengers in the country's southwestern Balochistan province.
The incident happened around 1 p.m. local time in rural Sibi district, near to a city station where the train had been due to stop. The train had left for Quetta for Peshawar in northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, a more than 30-hour journey at around 9 a.m. local time. Before seizing the train, the attackers blew up the railway track, forcing it to a halt in a remote area. Some of the passengers were freed by the assailants and walked for hours to reach the nearest railway station, from which they boarded other trains to Mak. Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi said security forces had rescued over 100 people, adding that 16 attackers had been killed. The assault was immediately claimed by the Balak Liberation Army, a separatist group behind rising violence in a province which borders Afghanistan and Iran. Security forces have been battling a decades-long insurgency in impoverished Balochistan, which armed groups claim is being exploited by outsiders, with wealth from its natural resources siphoned off with little benefit to the local population.
And still ahead, Trump halts plan for increased steel, aluminium tariffs on Canada. Stay tuned. Now, the United Nations has warned that the global aid funding crisis could be paid in children's lives in Rohingya refugee camps in Bangladesh unless sustainable funds emerge fast.
U.S. President Donald Trump imposed a freeze on foreign aid in January, pending a review, sending shockwaves through the humanitarian community. Huge numbers of the stateless Rohingya community live in relief camps in Bangladesh, most having arrived after fleeing a 2017 military crackdown in neighboring Myanmar. The UN Children's Agency UNICEF said youngsters in the camps were experiencing the worst levels of malnutrition since 2017, with admissions for severe malnutrition treatment up 27% in February compared with the same month last year. UNICEF's representative in Bangladesh, Reina Flowers, noted that without the guarantees of sustained funding, the agency's life-saving humanitarian services are at risk, with the price going to be paid in children's lives.
Any further reductions in humanitarian support risk pushing families into extreme desperation, heightening tensions and instability inside the already overcrowded camps, creating a catastrophe that would not only deepen their suffering, but also make it more challenging for us to operate and to provide that help.
The Republican-controlled U.S. House of Representatives has passed a stopgap bill to keep federal agencies funded past Friday, averting a partial shutdown beginning this weekend, even as President Donald Trump dramatically cuts the government.
The bill passed in a nearly party-line 217 to 213 vote, with one Republican voting no and one Democrat yes. The continuing resolution, which largely keeps the government funded at its current level through 30th September, would need to be passed by the Republican majority Senate and signed by Trump into law by Friday to avert a shutdown. Trump has been pressing Republicans to fall into line, and Vice President J.D. Vance urged them to stay unified at a closed-door meeting yesterday morning. Hardline Republican lawmakers have traditionally opposed to stopgap measures, and yesterday's vote marked the first time several of them voted in support of one since the party assumed the majority in the chamber in January 2023. The bill would extend government funding until the end of the fiscal year on 30th September. Increases in defense, veterans' care and border security would be offset by cuts to some domestic programs.
U.S. President Donald Trump has reversed course on a pledge to double tariffs on steel and aluminium from Canada to 50%, just hours after announcing the higher tariffs in a rapid-fire move that scrambled financial markets.
The switch came after a Canadian official also backed off his own plans for a 25% surcharge on electricity. Trump's latest salvo, which whipsawed financial markets and rekindled fears of inflation, followed Ontario Premier Doug Ford's announcement that he would place surcharge on the electricity from Canada's most populous province to more than 1 million US homes, unless Trump dropped all of his tariff threats against Canada's exports into the US. Faced with Trump's 50% tariff threat, Ford agreed to suspend the surcharge and meet with US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in Washington tomorrow. The White House then announced that only the previously planned 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium products from the United States' northern neighbor and all other countries would take effect on Wednesday, with no exceptions or exemptions. The back and forth between the US and Canada further unsettled financial markets already battered by Trump's focus on tariffs.
In a related development, Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese, has called the White House decision to impose import tariffs on Australian steel and aluminium completely unjustified and said the government would continue to push for an exemption.
Albanese stated that this is against the spirit of two nations' enduring friendship and is fundamentally at odds with the benefit of economic partnership that has been formed for more than 70 years. Despite the setback, Albanese said Australia would not impose counter-tariffs. Australia is a minor global player in steel export markets but is a dominant source of iron ore, a key raw ingredient in the alloy. Australian steel producer BlueScope said it employed around 4,000 staff in the United States.
And in other news, Portugal's centre-right minority government has collapsed after losing a vote of confidence, with the country now likely to head into its third early general election in as many years.
Prime Minister Luis Montenegro called the vote after the opposition questioned his integrity over the dealings of a consultancy firm he founded, which is now run by his sons. Montenegro has denied wrongdoing or any ethical shortcomings by the firm, which has contracts with private companies. Parliament debated the confidence motion for more than 3 hours, with the Socialist Party insisting that Montenegro cooperate with a special parliamentary inquiry into the business affairs of his family. But the sides failed to agree on the terms of the inquiry, and the confidence vote went ahead. Lawmakers voted 142 to 88, with 0 abstentions against the motion of confidence. Montenegro's administration now assumes a caretaker role. It is up to President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa whether to call a parliamentary election after he consults the main political parties today and his advisory council of state on Thursday. With the latest development, a new ballot could be held in mid-May.
The National Transportation Safety Board has made an urgent safety recommendation to prevent helicopters from flying near Washington Reagan National Airport when 2 lesser-used runways are operational, a move that followed a mid-air collision in January that killed 67 people.
The board justified its recommendation because of risk of mid-air collisions between helicopters. It is also recommending that the Federal Aviation Administration create an alternate route that can be used by helicopters when the 2 secondary runways at Reagan National are in use.
We've determined that the existing separation distances between helicopter traffic operating on Route 4 and aircraft landing on runway 33 are insufficient and pose an intolerable risk to aviation safety by increasing the chances of a mid-air collision at DCA. Let me repeat that. They pose an intolerable risk to aviation safety.
In the aftermath of the 29 January crash between an American Airlines passenger jet and a Black Hawk military helicopter over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., the Federal Aviation Administration temporarily barred most helicopters near the airport until it could review the board's initial findings.
Korean Air has unveiled a new aircraft livery and corporate branding, which will be implemented throughout the company as it merges with its South Korean competitor, Asiana Airlines, to establish itself as one of the largest carriers in Asia.
This initiative includes the introduction of a new brand logo representing the airline's first significant branding update in 41 years. The Korean Air CEO, Walter Cho, said the design retains the airline's signature Taeguk symbol, and it places it alongside the airline's name in a new logo format. Instead of the previous red and blue color scheme, the symbol now features a single-tone dark blue color referred to as Korean Air Dark Blue.
After the merger with Asiana, we'll continue to grow in revenue and also in size. But our my most important measurement in growth is service quality to our customers. And safety-wise, there's no question that is my top priority, and we will make significant investments into maintenance and also training of our service.
South Korea recently suffered two major aviation safety incidents a month apart, including the deadliest air disaster on South Korean soil when a Jeju airplane crashed at an airport.
Tensions escalated into violence as artisanal fishermen clashed with police outside the Chilean Congress in Valparaiso, protesting a bill redistributing fishing quotas between industrial and small-scale fishing operations.
Demonstrators erected flaming barricades near the congressional building, hurling objects at riot police who responded by deploying water cannons and tear gas to disperse the crowd.
La corrupción nuevamente está haciendo daño a nosotros, a los pescadores artesanales. ¿Quién sufre de esto? Aparte de hacer nosotros pescadores artesanales, sufre el pueblo, la gente.
At the heart of the conflict in the proposed fishing bill, which protesters claim would give a small group of industrial actors control of the market, which would disadvantage artisanal fishermen. The small-scale fishing sector has two primary demands: protecting its existing fishing quotas and maintaining the current ban on industrial trawling, which it argues depletes fish stocks and damages marine ecosystems.
Tens of millions of Pakistanis spent at least 4 months breathing toxic air pollution 20 times above safe levels in the worst winter smog season for several years.
Pakistan regularly ranks among the world's most polluted countries, with Lahore often the most polluted megacity between November and February. The winter smog season started a month earlier in October and persisted at higher levels, including in cities normally less affected by pollution. Lahore's 14 million residents spent 6 months breathing concentrations of PM 2.5 tiny particles that can penetrate the lungs and bloodstream at levels 20 times or more than recommended by the World Health Organization. Those in Karachi, Pakistan's biggest city, and the capital, Islamabad, were subjected to 120 days of the same choking pollution levels. Experts say the pollution is primarily caused by factory and traffic emissions. This year, winter rains that typically bring relief did not arrive until late February, as climate change renders Pakistan's weather patterns increasingly unpredictable.
Next in sports, top seeds Sunwhat Siobhan clear first hurdle at All England. Stay tuned. We begin with badminton. National mixed doubles pair Go Sunwhat and Siobhan Lai Jami struggled for an hour to set aside Thai pair Dechapon Puavanukrok and Supisara Pesampran 22, 22, 20, 19, 21, 21, 18 in the first round of the All England Badminton Championship.
In the competition held at the Utilita Arena, Birmingham, Sunwhat Chavon started strong with a victory in the first game. The second game was more intense, with the opponents from Thailand dominating the game before winning 21-9. However, the situation did not pressure Sunwhat Chavon as they managed to fight back in the deciding game to secure the win with a score of 21-18. The top seeds were seen reminding each other to remain calm every time they won a point in the third game to secure the victory and set up their second round match against Alexander Dunn and Julie McPherson of Scotland. The married couple were the only Malaysian representatives that fared well at the tournament yesterday, as other Malaysian shuttlers were shown the exit by their opponents in their matches. Meanwhile, Malaysia's hopes of winning the men's singles title at the All England suffered a major setback as national shuttler Lee Setia made shock first-round exit early this morning. World number 7 Setia saw his bid to reclaim the title he won in 2021 came to an abrupt end after falling to Hong Kong's Angus Ng 21-19, 16-21, 12-21 at Arena Birmingham. The early exit marks Setia's worst performance in 6 All England appearances, having never previously failed to reach at least the quarterfinals. Leong Junhao waited years to make his All-England debut, but his campaign lasted just 40 minutes on the court. There was no fairy tale upset this time, as the world number 24 fell 11-21, 19-21 to defending champion Jonathan Christie at Arena Birmingham. Hopes were high for Junhao to replicate his stunning victory over the world number 2 at last October's Kumamoto Masters, but it was not meant to be. He showed glimpses of a fight back and nearly forced the decider, clawing back to 19-20 in the second game, only for Jonathan to close out the match. It was also a disappointing outing for fellow Malaysian debutants, one Muhammad Arif Junaidi and Yap Roy King, who bowed out in the men's doubles. The world number 17 pair, fresh off a semi-final run at last week's Orleans Masters, was stunned 18-21, 21-16, 17-21 by world number 37 Huang Di and Liu Yang.
Moving on to football, Malaysian football powerhouse Johor Darul Ta'zim JDT failed to advance to the quarter-finals of the Asian Champions League Elite Championship after losing 1-0 to Thailand's Buriram United at the Sultan Ibrahim Stadium.
JDT, playing on home turf, had initially found the net against the visiting Buriram United in the 47 minutes, but Bergson da Silva's goal was cancelled out after a VAR check found him in an offside position. Continuing in the second half, the dramatic and thrilling match continued as Buriram United seemed to get an injection of energy by creating some dangerous moves in the opponent's area. After several attempts, Buriram United managed to get the opening goal through striker Supanat Mentas' curling strike in the 58th minute, thus making it 1-0 for the visitors. The hosts once again got the final chance to equalize when JDT striker Jorge Lorenzo Rojas managed to complete Arif Aiman Muhammad Hanapi's pass in the 97 minutes, but VAR once again cancelled out the goal for offside. The result remained 1-0 until the final whistle in the match, which took place in front of over 35,000 spectators. The result was a repeat of the Southern Tigers squad's achievement in the 2022 edition of the competition.
The UEFA Champions League, Paris Saint-Germain beat Liverpool 4-1 in a penalty shootout to advance to the quarter-finals after winning a rip-roaring last 16-second leg match at Anfield 1-0, thanks to a goal from live wire Ousmane Dembele.
Arne Slot's team played considerably better than a week earlier when they needed a last gasp goal from substitute Harvey Elliott after the Parisians had dominated, and Reds talisman Mohamed Salah had a shot blocked on the goal line by Nuno Mendes in the game's first few minutes. PSG goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma was forced into making an early diving save to keep out a shot from Ibrahima Konate, but both sides spurned chances in a nervy game that had fans on the edge of their seats. Liverpool parked themselves in PSG's territory for much of the second half of normal time and had a goal from Dominic Szoboszlai, chalked off for offside, in the build-up early in the second period. They kept Donnarumma busy in the dying minutes, with the keeper parrying away ball after ball fired into the box. After the tie had finished 1-1 on aggregate, Donnarumma saved spot kicks from Darwin Núñez and Curtis Jones, while the visitors, who have never won the Champions League, converted all of their efforts.
Meanwhile, Rafinha scored twice and Lamine Yamal netted with a stunning strike in a rampant first half as Barcelona dismantled Benfica 3-1 in the Champions League last 16, second leg, advancing to the quarterfinals with a 4-1 aggregate victory.
It was an inspired evening for teenager Yamal, who was pretty much unplayable, running up and down the right channel, creating most of Barca's scoring chances. The 17-year-old Spain winger worked his magic with a spectacular solo run to gift Rafinha the opener in the 11th minute, leaving two opponents on the ground before crossing for the Brazil forward to poke the ball into the net with a close-range volley. Benfica hit back through a Nicolas Otamendi header from a corner 2 minutes later, but Barca kept piling on the pressure, with Yamal proving a nightmare for Benfica's left-back, Samuel Doll, who was powerless to stop the Spanish teenager. Yamal put the home side back in front in the 28th minute. He cut inside and beat a disorientated Doll before unleashing a swerving left-footed shot into keeper Anatoly Trubin's top right corner. Rafinha extended Barca's lead from a quick counter-attack in the 42nd minute to claim the victory. Barca will meet the winner of the tie between Lille and Borussia Dortmund. In another match, Marcus Thuram and Hakan Çalhanoğlu were on target as Inter beat Feyenoord 2-1 in the second leg of the Champions League last 16 tie to advance comfortably into the quarterfinals with a 4-1 aggregate win. Feyenoord came into the game with an uphill task after losing 2-0 at home last week, and by the 8th minute they were left with a mountain to climb following Thuram's superb solo goal. Thuram collected the ball on the left wing before cutting inside to the area and making room with some clever footwork for the shot, which he curled into the far top corner. Mehdi Taremi sent a shot straight at the keeper as Inter looked to put the tie even further out of reach, but Feyenoord pulled one back 3 minutes before the break from the penalty spot. Çalhanoğlu was penalised for a foul on Jakub Moder, who picked himself up and sent his spot kick into the bottom corner to beat Inter keeper Jan Sommer. Any hope of Feyenoord coming back all but ended when Çalhanoğlu made up for his mistake by converting his own penalty 6 minutes into the second half after Thomas Balen fouled Taremi.
76 minit tanpa henti.
76 minutes non-stop. Transparent and concise.
Paparan komprehensif, ringkas dan padat. Saksikan Kanta 744, 7.44 malam. Berita perdana 8 malam.
Malaysia tonight, 8:30 p.m. And that's it from us today. In our top story, Ukraine ready to accept 30-day ceasefire with Russia. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Brenda Lepol from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Thanks for your company. Take care.